that, and literally from that, I just started. I just started writing. It was what prepared me for it is from from acting. I read a lot of scripts, read a lot of books, read a lot of Shakespeare. It was a particular book called The Artist's Way. I read maybe 5, maybe 8 years prior, and The Artist's Way basically was a book for artists, but they work in the professional. They work in the profession like they're lawyers, doctors, something like that. But they have the art in them, and they had in this book it talked about morning pages. You don't think, you just wake up, you just start writing, just freestyling it. And that's what set the tone for me. Then all of a sudden, when I started writing, I got tapped into the source. It was a download, literally, like the characters were speaking to me. And I was writing for 18, sometimes 20 hours a day for 6 months straight. I worked from home. And I mean, the characters, the whole idea of everything I was writing, it was like a movie. I can hear the soundtrack as the characters were speaking, the actions, sequences, all of that. And 6 months later, I had a book. It was 3 books in one. And then from there, I submitted to a publisher in New York. With the editor, she loved it, but at that time, they didn't have any writers like me. They didn't have any Black American, African American authors who wrote this type of genre. So when that editor left, I decided to self-publish, and that kind of took me to another journey of learning how to self-publish, working through a self-publishing company, and to get the book out there. So when the book was published, I was grinding. That's when the grind really started, just trying to get people to know about the book. Then I just start learning about, book clubs. That's how I found out about Goodreads and put it on there and had people read it. And when people were reading it, they loved the story. Everyone loved the story. The only difference between, say, my African American brothers and sisters reading, they loved it because they got the lingo and everything. But the white readers, they loved it, but they couldn't understand the lingo. And that's who I was trying to capture the audience of, of our people, black readers. But it was a really small amount compared to the white readers. And they were saying, if you change the lingo, you're going to have a hit like Harry Potter. So I put that in consideration, but still not knowing what's going to happen. 4 years later, then boom, this happened. I had my first book signing for Black History Month at Barnes and Noble at the Grove. So this is the banner that they had hung up on the windows at Barnes and Noble. And from there, my mentor, rest in peace, Reginald Rutherford, he died on my birthday. He was at the event and he mentioned, like, now you got to do Comic-Con. And I didn't know what Comic-Con was, or cosplay, and any of that stuff. So he told me that you have to create a cosplay. Let me grab the picture of the first one.
And when you come back, I want you to give a synopsis of the book so that they understand and follow what the book is about.
Yeah.
What the Chronicle was about, because it was one large book, but then you had to split it into 3. Go ahead.
3, yeah, yes, sir. So these are the models I hired at the time when we did Comic-Con in 2016, right after, about 6 months after I did the Barnes and Noble event. So I actually cosplayed. I jumped in. I created a costume for myself with the character. So this is Alan King, the last prince of Atlantis. This is the Greek goddess Athena, and I'm King Leon. And then so when we went to the Comic-Con,
if I wouldn't have cut my dreads, I would have wanted to been a part of that cosplay.
I still got the drag wig, brother. You can wear it. But when I did that, everyone at Comic-Con was literally like stopping. Was like, "Who are you?" Kevin, the young man, he knew what to say. I'm Alan King. I'm the last prince of Atlantis, and Erin, she knew to say that I am the Greek goddess Athena. And that's when I knew I had something tangible, that from written story to actually live, you're seeing like what the character looks like. Now the cosplay costume at that time, that was the best thing I can think of at that time. But I know when the movie happens, that's going to be 100 times better. So the synopsis of the story is Alan King is an unassuming, shy, skinny black teenager living in a blue-collar family in Miami, Florida. After coming across a magical crystal necklace, he discovers he's a Atlantean prince. Suddenly things change for the gawky teenager. Alan gains the powers of telepathy, teleportation, through a rainbow wormhole, and it has the ability to speak to sea animals. Along with a beautiful Greek goddess, his orphan best friends, and zany uncle, Alan helps keep the Earth safe as they fight against his mortal enemies and attempt to restore his kingdom, the lost city of Atlantis. That was the original synopsis, but I have like two other synopsis that I use. Like, for example, with their love story between Alan and Athena. The Last Prince of Atlantis is a classical romance story between the black alien hybrid Prince Alan King and the Greek goddess Athena, Zeus's great granddaughter. Zeus does not approve of Athena dating Alan. He warns her that alien blood and Greek blood does not mix. So she continues to date Alan. She loses all her godly powers and wealth on Earth. Athena is the last of the living gods. So now Athena has a decision to make. If she continues to date Alan, her Greek history will end, but her Atlantean journey will begin.
It was interesting, and some of the key points and themes of the book were overcoming evil, teens prevail, young love, long lost heirs, and newfound strength. My next question, can you elaborate on your decision to feature a biracial, multicultural protagonist in your young adult series, particularly within the context of the genre representation?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, living in California, for one, we're a big melting pot. And I think a lot of biracial kids, they get stuck in trying to find their identity between being black and white. And I wanted to show, just in general, as black kids, multicultural black kids, that the Alan King character is them. They represent them. That, just a good, clean cut kid, so to speak. He always think of good, doing the best thing possible for him and his family. So I just want to inspire kids of color, of all kids in general, just to dream bigger. So that's why I created a story. So when I start doing my traveling around the world, you see a lot of multicultural kids. When I was in Africa, especially Brazil, you see a lot of multicultural kids, and so that's why I wanted to target that audience, because I really think that, I mean, us as a people, we're a rainbow of colors, and multicultural kids. I think if they, embrace both all their sides, no matter what society think who they are, and that's what Alan represents.
And it's interesting. You talked about when you traveled. You used your travels, and you wrote about those places within your book. Tell us all the places that you've been to and what.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'll start off with here. This is the Great Barrier Reef. I'm just sure you can see this photo. So I died in the Great Barrier Reef. So this is Australia. That was amazing. Going to Africa. This book is taking me to Africa. I never imagined going to Africa. And I went to Africa to do research on the Zulus, because the protagonist character is Zulu and alien. Going to Africa, Brazil. Brazil is such a cultural melting pot. But Brazil has a very strong African culture in that country. As you may not know, but Brazil is the second largest population of Africans outside of Africa. Well, we kind of know the reason why that is, the slave trade. But there's a big African influence in Brazil. Dominican, Greece, doing the research for the Greek god characters Zeus and Athena, staying in Santorini. And we'll probably talk about Leonard Nimoy, him having a big influence on me being named after him, with his show In Search Of. I didn't realize when I was in Santorini, Greece, after I did all my research, about a year later, I watched In Search Of again. It hit me like Leonard Nimoy was there, because a lot of people thought Atlantis was in Santorini. I was there for my own mythology I created. And I was like, wow, I mean, I'm connected to this man in more ways than I ever thought. Even having the book signing, The Grove, the first one, the first day that week, William Shatner had his book signing about Leonard Nimoy, and his banner next to my banner, Leonard. That's when like the hair stood back in my neck, and like God in the universe was speaking to me. And I told Mr. Shatner that I was named after him. I'm gonna have my book signed the next day. He's like, he wished me best of luck. Then the day after that, Stan Lee was there with Bob Kane, who created The Dark Knight. So it was the 30th anniversary for his comic book. So I'm in the middle of all these iconic people at that time. But to piggyback back to the traveling, Hawaii. This book takes me to Hawaii. See, what else places I miss? See, Africa, Greece, Australia, Brazil, Dominican, Hawaii. Yeah, I mean, that's amazing just in itself, just to do the research thoroughly, making sure.
So you mentioned Leonard Nimoy, and you talk about William Shatner. For folks that are in the new generation, they don't know about Star Trek.
Oh yeah, Captain Kirk.
But talk to us about how Leonard Nimoy's work influenced your storytelling.
Yeah. I mean, of course, Star Trek, that's sci-fi. It comes from sci-fi. And I remember a famous quote or something he wrote, a kid who's actually was biracial, like Leonard Nimoy's Spock character. He's half human and he's half Vulcan. And this kid, I think she lived in Boston. She was biracial, saying that show really made her felt like she was, her self-worth, from Leonard Nimoy's character Spock. She can relate to it. And that's kind of was the influence on me, like the creating the Alan character in a lot of ways. The same with the Joss Stone, because Joss Stone character, he's half Native American and Black. And he embraces his Native American side later on once he has the blood that can summon the gargoyles from planet Zion West, which is Alan's mortal enemies. And Josh and Alan, they always clashed with each other. They never knew why, because of the influence he was having from the destroyer, the alien gargoyle, the one of the antagonist characters in the book. So I thought that was important too, because there's a lot of Native American and Black people here in this country as well. I think Seminoles are Black. So I just wanted to represent every single race in a positive way. We're, like I said, a cultural melting pot. My production company is called One Universe Productions. We all come from the same stardust. I know you call this the multiverse, the book series, but I really want to embrace like everyone. The Francisco character, the Cuban kid who's friends with Alan, and the Jake character, the white kid. They're a band of brothers. And they become superheroes. I mean,
and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because you wanted to include a cadre of races, right? Including,
yes,
and they were orphaned as well. Do you
right.
want to talk a little bit about why you used the orphan, story?
Yeah, I want to use the orphan story because I think in general, for me personally, I think a lot of kids who are in foster care, because they're in foster care, they deem like maybe they're bad. Not to say their parents abandoned them, that sort of thing. And when that happens, how society treat these kids like they're like nothing. They are worthy, and that's Jake and Francisco. They started off, they're known as bullies because they wore it as a badge of honor. So they would bully other kids, but not Alan. I mean, they kind of grew up together when Alan was 6 and they were 6 years old. So they protected Alan, who's a skinny, scrawny kid, but they looked out for after each other. And so I wanted to portray that side as well with the bad. You think the bad kid who's not going to be anything, he's worthless, but they are very worthy human beings, and they become these superheroes, and their demeanor changed as well once Athena, they all move into Athena's mansion in South Beach once she helps Alan on his journey, because she has Plato's book. She's related to Plato, but the book is unpublished. There's one unpublished book talks about Atlantis still exists. So she helps him on the journey and falls in love with him. But when the orphan kids, Jake and Francisco, lives with them, with the Uncle Zadok character, Alan's uncle, embraces them like he's a father figure to them. And their demeanor changed. They get good grades in school, but they still battle with this, being a teenager. They go through some mental health issues, like we talked about in the books. Book 1 is kind of polarizing compared to book 2, because book 2 gets a little darker. This was I'm saying, like Jake almost commits suicide because he thinks he gets a girl pregnant, but he was being used by this girl because he's wearing flashy clothes, living in a nice house, driving a nice car now, and he becomes kind of like caught up in like this different lifestyle, and yeah, so he almost commits suicide, but he's saved. You know, Alan saves him.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously, you know, you have me going through different things. Remember, we're talking about Florida and what happened.
Yeah, we
there.
talked about, it's kind of prophetic, right? I mean, when we talked about, when I told you about, I'm not sure all the listeners, audience out there, the TikTok video went viral about some alien. They said it was a group of teenagers in a mall in Miami. They had some kind of box that opened, a portal of aliens came out of it. But they said they were fighting. It was like 30, 40 cop cars went to this Miami mall, surrounded it. And when I looked at all the comments, when I was telling you, it was like, no, 30, 40 cops when I just show up in the mall for a bunch of kids fighting. And there's no videos showing that these kids fighting at all. But I wrote this in the book 13 years ago with Alan, Jake, Francisco, and Athena. That's when they first introduced themselves as superheroes, as Atlantis Superhero Ball, as ASB, as the acronym. That they literally fight this alien, the destroyer, the alien antagonist character from Alan's ancestors' alien planet that's west of Saturn. But anyway, it's literally in the book. And I spoke to a lady about it. She's a teacher in New York, but she's from Miami, and she heard about the story. And I told her, well, in the book, they fight outside the American Airlines Arena. She said, that's exactly where the incident happened. I'm like, whoa.
No, you can't make this
like,
up.
wow, you can't make this stuff up.
You can't make this up.
Prior to this incident, 13 years ago.
Back in 2020 or 2021, I decided to assign that book to my 417 equity and diversity class, and what I wanted them to do was develop a study guide questions, you know, for whole class novel approaches using reading comprehension and imaginative reflection as the teaching tool. It was fascinating. But let me get back to if you could share more about your creative process and the inspiration behind Atlantean mythology you developed, blending African and alien elements. I think people will be curious about that.
Yeah. I think a lot of people went, for example, I put in a book competition called Screencraft. There's a big platform for writers. So I made quarterfinalists in that, and they rated the book. I'm gonna get to that question. This is what they said when you're on the red list. They send it to industry, to Hollywood industry folk. So it's top 22% out of now 131,000 projects. All the projects is up there, and one of the judges who read it, he said, is a great element of, like you're saying, of Atlantis, Greek gods and aliens. That's never been done before. I never thought about it that way, but I was always fascinated with, you know, with aliens now. I mean, even more so now than when I wrote the book 13 years ago. Everyone's talking about aliens. You know, they're waiting for Project Bluebeam and all these other things to occur. But I wanted to have that element to show that, you know, we do all coexist. I do believe aliens do exist. I remember Anne Rice mentioned when she wrote Interview with the Vampire, and she had a book about Lestat being Prince of Atlantis, and something in my spirit told me to go to the Grove. When I saw it, I'm like, what the hell? There's a vampire running Atlantis. I got a little pissed. So when I went to the screen, when I went to her book signing, she saw me wearing my Atlantis shirt. It looked like she saw a crown on my head. But she said she believes in vampires and werewolves and all those things, all that folklore. I do believe we coexist together in some sense, back in ancient times, I mean, modern times, I mean, even more so now. So I myself personally, I thought that I want to add all those elements together, and it's never been done like this before in the sci-fi genre. And need to be a brother to create this. It's pretty gratifying.
Yes. Well, talk about your challenges that you encountered in self-publishing your series, and how did you navigate them to bring your own vision to fruition?
Uh, yeah, the challenge. I started something right. All myths are based on fact. Boom, there you go. Um, yeah, it was hard because I'm still to this day. I'm the publicist. I'm the publisher. I'm the marketer. You got to just literally get out there and let people know about it. Know about your work. And some people, they like, just for example, they see this book cover. It's not just a black book. It's a multiverse of characters and whatnot. But yeah, it's been, yeah, I've had some challenges, but it's gotten a lot easier now, uh, because I never gave up. I never quit. And now I feel like my mentor Reginald Rutherford, rest in peace. He said I was ahead of my time. He did a segment on Afrofuturism about 6 years ago with the Oscars, and they were interviewing Tomi Adeyemi. She did the Children, Blood and Bone. I hope I said her last name correctly. I'm actually in her book club. She was the first person to interview about that, and then he was there. I mean, he was one of the ones there that was filming it, and he called me right away. It's like, man, you're ahead of your time. People are finally going to catch up with you. And my book came out before hers, but now there's so many now black authors who's young authors writing Afrofuturistic books. Um, I know Octavia Butler, she's one of the pioneers of it, but now there's so many more. But you rarely still see writers that look like me, black man, African American male who write it. So I'm honored to be in that, I guess you can say, pot of like all these great writers, and now
Absolutely. You're friends, you're good friends with the Christopher St. John, and I know
yeah, Christoph,
that we
yeah,
did at the intersection of the blaxploitation film
oh
genre
yeah,
and Afrofuturism. And Christopher St. John, he created this movie way back, before
top of the heat.
blaxploitation, Top of the Heap. If you've never seen it, I would recommend you strongly to go see that and rent it, on Google, Amazon, or something. But Top of the Heap is, so to speak, one of the first Afrofuturistics. Yeah, there it is. We did that in 22, and
Yeah, yeah.
he had it's a lot of great things to say. But anyways, I wanted to mention that. What significance does the representation of diverse cultures and locations, such as Africa, Australia, that you speak of, Greece, Hawaii, um, hold within your storytelling, and how does your travels influence this narrative?
Oh, greatly it does. One thing I learned, especially when I went to Africa, everything is tribal. Um, and when I created the Atlantis story, I wanted, the Atlanteans became their own tribe. But even when every 100 years in a book, they would migrate to another location, kind of like nomads. But the locations they would migrate to, the people in these areas, they were embraced like their culture and make it part of their own. Um, More kind of democratic society, but it's still Atlantean. The bloodline is still black, even though they're multicultural. Uh, so with that question, it was a huge influence. I learned a lot, and it's like even the Greek culture, I learned a lot. I was embraced everywhere I went. Even when I was in the airport in Spain, when people would see the book, they were so curious and like, "What is this?" They want to take pictures with me with the book. Like, I'm going to buy the book. So I was really embraced with every single culture. Um, I respected every single culture. That's another thing I learned, because Greece, I still can't speak Greek, but I got through. I survived. I was there for a couple of weeks. But a lot of people now anywhere you go, everyone speaks English. Um, but just all the travels I've done and every place I went, even Hawaii is a very tribal. As you know, a lot of Hawaiians, very tribal people. Um, and the one thing I get from all the traveling is the matriarch and the patriarchy, system, whatever, is very tribal, but they're very embracing. If you embrace that culture, they welcome you in. I hope I answered that. I hope I answered that correctly for you.
Let me go to the movies. You had the opportunity to interact with Chadwick Boseman, God rest his soul, in terms of his superpower with the Black Panther, fellow actor who left left a significant legacy.
Mm-hmm.
How has his influence and your experiences with him shaped your aspirations and approach to your own legacy?
Black excellence. That man is a very humble person. He worked out at LA Fitness. He could have worked out at Equinox. He could have worked out anywhere. He worked out at LA Fitness over by LACMA. And this when he played James Brown. He played uh, Jackie Robertson. And he actually did Civil War. When they introduced his character, he was still working out there, and he was training for Black Panther, because I remember he was doing his sparring for this. So he'll see me like, do the head nod, like, "What's up, bro? What's up, bro?" And then we'll talk briefly. But one of my good friends, Alpha Manyema, he has a foundation called Jinko. I mentioned before. It's jinko.org. Check it out. They're doing great things in Nigeria. He sponsored Alpha's Foundation, 21 Bridges, that film, like, meet and greet, like, to raise money. He was such a great person, great humanitarian. You can see it when he goes to Children's Hospital. No one knew he had cancer, and just to be so strong of a man with dignity. So that had an impact on me still to this day. Always do everything you do it with integrity, be the best you can be. Me and my girlfriend Niz, we talk about that quite a bit. Like the phrase you said, no half-ass, go 100%, but do it with dignity and be the best you can be. And that's what I get from Chadwick Boseman.
And I know that you're an activist. Obviously, you did some things following the murder of George Floyd. How did you see your role as an author intersecting with your advocacy efforts?
Yeah, well, the funniest thing, even the books, when I wrote the original book, 3 books in one, Alan gets racially profiled. He has his superhero powers, but yet he's still a Black kid. Like what happened to Trayvon at the time when I think my book came out with Trayvon, or maybe a little bit afterwards, that he could have like literally kicked the cop's ass, probably killed him if he wanted to. He had that power, but he held his strength and dignity because he knew that the antagonist, the hybrid reptilian billionaire Drogon character, was pulling the strings. But the activism was one of the best things I ever done. I do believe 2020, when that pandemic happened, it was enlightenment, because everyone had a chance to sit back and kind of see what's going on in the world. So what happened to George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, people was, pissed globally. And when I stepped out the first day when everything ignited here, when the Grove was vandalized, like Macy's and Nordstrom's, there was kids tagging like the buses, breaking windows. But when I had a chance to grab a couple, like, hey, you got to stop that. And these are white kids were doing this. So they're gonna think I did this. You got to stop. Like, well, I'm sorry. I'm here to like help them. Like, you actually help you causing the problem even more. I mean, Black kids were doing what Latino kids do, but there was a lot of white kids out there doing it. So I wanted to just show love and unity. Just like Martin Luther King did, with no destruction, no vandalizing, no vandalism, because we are a great people, and everything I think we do is with dignity and great, with excellence. And sometimes society deemed us as none of those things. I know the system set it up that way to look that way, but that was one of the best things that ever happened to me in my life, because I met a lot of like-minded people, and that's what kind of created some of the things that I have. With we haven't talked about the NFT. Like my friend Free Hester, I met him during the protest, and he created this. He created this, which was the NFT, and my girlfriend Niz created a jacket, and now which is this. You know, she created this for me, and now I put this in stores. And it's
Not everybody knows what NFT stands for. Non-fungible token. It's a digital identifier. Anyhow, go ahead, finish.
Yes. And so my nephew Nate from Texas, he's in the room, so just let me know he's watching. So what's up, nephew Nate? Proud of him.
What's up, nephew Nate?
Texas is doing big things out there.
Let me ask you this. Can you discuss your aspirations of turning The Last Prince of Atlantis into a epic movie franchise? I know there's folks that approached you a couple times, but you refused. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, literally, like the last couple of years, I have so many people literally call me daily trying to get me to sign with them, do research, like they're like some of them were fake, you know, almost like scams. But now the script is pretty much done. I'm working with a great producer, screenwriter. I'm a shout. His name is Nate too, like my nephew. I hired him to do the script, and now I'm talking to producers. I actually had a meeting with producers yesterday. I plan on meeting with an investor this month. There's a big franchise director who looked at my pitch deck. I mean, he's huge. I mean, he's a billion dollar franchise he's created. He's about to create another one. I'm not gonna say his name, but if I can get him on board and get attached, then the door is just gonna open. But one thing I know to create something as epic as this, you got to have a good team. And before I didn't have a team, it was all me. And I went through a lot of meetings with people that I thought they were like, you know, legit. They weren't. Some people just trying to sell me. You know, I'm spending money for nothing, and they're trying to give me advice on how to write a script, because screenwriting is different from book writing. It's a big difference. And the one person that I paid like a consultant, he was giving me bad ideas. To where the guy I have, Nate created the script. When I hired him, he looked at it like, bro, what is this? He was like adding Batman elements into my Atlantis elements. And I was like, yeah, I know. He's like, no, we're going to do this the right way. So now I'm on the right track to, as I continue to build my team and see which producers I'm going to work with, the movie's going to happen. And speaking of other things on top of that, this should be coming out soon. It's called America's Next Great Author. That's me right there. We shot this in New Jersey. So the brother right here, Kwame Brown, he just won an Emmy for his show on Disney. And I'm a semifinalist in that. I was chosen out of 4,000 people on this show.
I think that's worth an applause. Let's give Leonard a virtual applause. And you know, one of my students does have a question for you, so go ahead and finish your thought, and then we can go ahead.
Yeah.
There's actually two folks. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Lilo.
Okay, so I heard what you said about how like you kind of answered it the more you kept talking though, when you were talking about like building your team and just like your struggles with that. And my question for you is just like, in regards to that, do you feel like well, like I said, you kind of answered it though, because you say you're still building your team and still finding more people. So do you feel like your success is what brought people to like want to join your team, or do you feel basically people gravitated towards you once they seen like, oh, this is taking off? But you also mentioned how someone tried to incorporate like Batman themes into, and like basically changing and trying to influence your original idea. So yeah, it's kind of like a mixed question, but yeah. So what main factors do you look for when it comes to building your team and being able to be like, oh, okay, I feel like I could trust you with, you know, something that I hold, you know, very important to me. Like, yeah, that's kind of basically my question for you.
Yeah. With the main thing of building my team is that I know that they're trustworthy, that they're gonna work to what I create, not trying to just take away what I created, because the blueprint is already here. Everything is right here in this book. So everything has to be close to the book, so the adaptation has to be close to the book, the script, the characters who I envision who to play. I'm going to shout this out. I want Samuel Jackson to play the Uncle Zadok character, and have all the other characters based around him. So the people I'm talking to now, I'm slowly making sure that they're the right, they're the right set of people, because if not, then I'm gonna lose another 2 years. I mean, another year, 6 months, which I don't have time, because now is the time to get this made. And so I'm really close to building that team, but it's going to continue to expand because I literally have $1 billion franchise. So you need a big team, and everyone has to play their position, from the screenwriter to the director to whoever's going to do the scouting for the locations. I pretty much did all that when I traveled around the world. I did the scouting, and I know Greece have big tax incentives. Australia have big tax incentives. So I'm going to continue to build my team. Even someone who wants to do like pro bono, like, internship until things start to build up and the millions of dollars start to come in, then they'd be hired full time or whatever. Yeah, I'm open to all those things, but they have to basically do what I feel is right for the IP I created, because if we go off track, then that's going to just delay time. But that's one thing I learned. When you have your own business, you're going to have to go through the bad to get to the good. You know what I mean? And you definitely got to weed out people and see if they're right. I mean, even though I hired the screenwriter that I have, he's literally been working harder to make sure the script is tighter and better, so we can get in the hands of the guy that I want to hopefully be attached to it, because the dude is huge. He's getting bigger and bigger.
Iterations and iterations, right? It's
Yeah.
Sustained vision. There's 3 questions. We'll go with Willard, and then we'll go with Dom, and then there's a guest, Andrew Thompson, that will.
My brother from Australia.
Yeah, that will allow to talk after we ask those questions. So Willard, go ahead.
No, my question was, I know you got inspired by like Star Trek, but like and Star Trek, like what was your favorite like scientific theme you kind of liked about it that you
I
incorporated
just
into
like
the book?
everything generally. That was the first show where they had the first interracial kiss, was on Star Trek. I like the whole thing. Even Captain Kirk, no matter what color you are, you're fine. He's gonna date you, kind of thing. But I just like the whole scientific part of like them, like the beaming up. That's kind of like teleportation, like in the book where Alan teleports through his crystals. I like the whole thing of them also being a team. They work together as a team. But I never seen a show like that growing up, where you had black, white, Asian, Latino. I think Native American too, like the melting pot, just like the book. So I never thought about that. Yeah. So yeah, that show was a big influence. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you have. Thank you.
All right, Dom.
Okay. So my question is, as a writer and a novelist myself, what advice would you give for somebody that's just starting out as a young writer, just starting out with their novel?
Yeah, just write whatever you feel that your characters are. You're gonna know them better than anyone else. Just write it. Just write. Don't even think about it. Just continue to write until you feel that you have a good set of characters, and you have that story arc, and you have the description of how each background of the characters, what they do, how they feel, and what's their journey are. Just keep writing, and you'll get better at it. Because I didn't know I was a writer at the time when I started writing. As I mentioned before, I started reading The Artist's Way, but that prepared me for my writing, because I come from an acting background. I read a lot of scripts. I read a lot of books. Lord of the Rings was a big influence on me. I love Alexander Dumas, The Count of Monte Cristo. But yeah, just keep writing. And another gentleman I consider as my mentor, his name is Billy Ray. He wrote Captain Phillips, Hunger Games. I can email him at any time with something. Like, he looked at my decks like it's great. If he says it's great, he was nominated for an Oscar, I know it's good. And he always tells me, just keep writing.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I'm going to allow Mr. Andrew Thompson to speak.
Yes, my brother Andrew.
Andrew, can you, if you can take your mute off, you should be able to, we should be able to hear you.
There you go. You almost there. You almost there, bud.
Okay. So
Andrew's still on
you
mute.
just have to unmute and you should be okay.
He'll eventually come. But one thing I want to say real quick before Andrew comes on, I want to give a shout out. My clothes are actually in my Black Beauty box in the Crenshaw Mall. That's another way that I'm working to build my brand and connect with the Black community. So Mercedes Carter's great person, her husband Chris. They have my clothes in there. So this is some of the merch that I have in the store. I have cups, coffee mugs, all those things. But I just want to give a shout out to them because they give a platform for Black creatives, with their merch. And I'm honored and fortunate to have my clothes in their store. And it's called My BBB. It's at the bottom store. It's the end of the mall next to the gaming. It's like a virtual game store. So I just wanted to say that I'm very thankful for the Black communities embracing me more, and the merch is selling.
Well, that's good. Well, I don't know what's going on with Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew.
But I do have another question. What messages or themes do you hope readers take away from your work? And this series is not your only book. You have another book.
Yes, Eve the Soul Reaper, the same thing. It's about a girl fighting
the Soul Reaper. Tell us a little bit about that.
See, that's a Black fairy. She's a Black fairy warrior. That's my Rihanna. My muse for here, the Black. She's Atlantean too, so it ties in with the Last Prince of Atlantis Chronicles series. Just good versus evil and overcoming good and just doing the right thing, and that's Alan. That's all my protagonist characters. And I'm gonna jump off of this to something else, to a show that really embraced that I really love. I'm not sure if you saw the Bass Reeves, Law and Brass Reeves by David Oyelowo. Man, that's such a great series. And David, like, he's the epitome of Black excellence. And that character he portrays of Bass Reeves, he does the greater good. Even though he's in the midst of wolves, he always still prevailed to do the greater good. And that's what the characters are in this book.
Thank you for that. So, Mike, obviously we're talking at the very beginning in terms of Afrofuturism, and obviously it's been played out in film and music and literature. Like, for example, George Clinton in the 70s, Public Enemy in the 80s, techno DJs such as Spooky and the Subliminal Kid in the 90s and 2000s, and most recently Beyonce, right, in terms of what she's done with her concerts and things of that nature.
She's in the book with pop culture.
Right. How do you envision the future of Afrofuturism, both in literature and beyond?
It's going to get better and better and greater and greater. I mean, we are very gifted, talented people, as you know. And once the first film happens, it's going to branch off to TV series. I see anime. I see video games, Afrofuturistic video games. We're just going to keep getting better and better, brother. Like fine wine, age, getting better.
That's what I'm talking about. Does anybody have any other questions in the class for Leonard with respect to what he's done and taking an idea and it's been since what did you say, 2011 since this has happened?
2012. Yeah, when I first initially wrote the book in 2012, and when I saw this, like I said, dawned on me, like the Hunger Games, the Twilight, I'm like, that's when I'm like, whoa. And something has to change. If you don't like the change, then you make the change. And that's what I did. I stepped up and I did it. Another cool thing I want to share this, I like Ingram Sparks books. They distribute my books. That's why it's in the bookstores, Barnes & Noble, The Grove. Oh, and by the way, I have a book signing Sunday, June 30th 12 p.m. at the Grove, Barnes and Noble. It'll be my second book signing. So come through on the Sunday. But this tripped me out. They wrote a great piece on me, or like on their social media. If you watch this Aquaman, I can't see the cameraman. Let me see what I can. Yeah, if you watch this, read this, and they broke it down like kind of like the similarities, but it's totally different story between my Atlantis, of course, Aquaman, and Percy Jackson. Totally different stories. So there's room for all of us, but yet, like you said, I'm coming with the Afrofuturism. And it's gonna just keep getting better and better.
Or what we call it BOLD, Black Odyssey Driven Excellence.
Yes, sir.
And we have Stephanie who has a question for you. Go ahead, Steph.
Okay, me in this mute. So one of the questions I have is I've been watching, like, I don't watch TV that much because, like, I'm not buying cable or whatever. But people like Rihanna, no, not Rihanna, what's her name? Beyonce, people like Charles Barkley. So I don't get this. They advertise various products. They bring people to Subway, they bring people to Verizon. But when it comes to funding things that are really Black projects that could really get off the ground with their support, it seems it's so challenging to get the support that we need. You know, there's a shop in Baldwin Hills, Crenshaw Mall, and it's mostly a kid's shop. And I buy my great-grandson like these little t-shirts where it's a little Black kid and he's riding on a rocket. You know, so it's like encouraging our kids to be their full self. But it seems like there's such a I don't know, a lack of true support within our own community.
Yeah.
And it's very, you know, like Comic-Con, my son-in-law is a Comic-Con person. So I knew about Comic-Con because they go every year. You know what I'm saying? So that was like such an ideal place, you know, for you to, you know, to push your books. I mean, I get it. That's wonderful. But I just think it's very, on my behalf, I feel very disheartened because if a Beyonce or Charles Barkley, the money that they spend, that we give back to them to be charged for those products, it would be so great if they would turn them back into the community. But it just seems like that's so hard to get people to do.
Once they get a certain part of success, I'm glad you mentioned that. That's why I'm so thankful when I mentioned my Black Beauty box. Sound like you've probably been to my B store, because Mercedes, I mean, she's not famous in anything. I believe she's an accountant, but she literally wanted to have a place for Black creators like myself to showcase their merch. I'm sure Beyonce, I think she does some charities we probably don't even know about. I'm pretty sure she does in Houston. I think I've heard she has. But we definitely need to have more. And one of my main goals I have is, once the millions of dollars come through, I'm gonna have a foundation for foster kids. So they go to any college they want to go to. And once they become successful, they reach back and help the next person. And unfortunately, there's a lot of Black foster kids in the system, and when they get aged out, they have nowhere to go. They're homeless. I mean, all kids in general, Latino kids as well, Native American kids, white kids. It's very sad. So I pray that all the things that I've talked about is manifesting. But once I get to that point, I'm definitely going to reach back, and I'm definitely going to give up. I like what Kyrie Irving. We heard a lot about him. That brother does a lot for the community. But I know what you mean with the brand and the products. I don't know. Maybe it's their handlers, or who the powers that be that limit them from doing it. But I think Beyonce does a lot of humanitarian stuff. We just probably don't know about it. Nelly does the same thing too.
I mean, I know they do some stuff, but considering, if 50 just bought a 50-room mansion, he'll never go into every room. We need housing.
Right.
We need, there is enough money that I fostered my grandchildren for 20 years. And I know that there's actually resources out there, but the problem is that the information doesn't get into the community.
Right. It's funny you mentioned that. I'm part of another organization. It's called A Sense of Home. And what the
Mhm.
Sense of Home does, they build homes for former foster kids to live in. And a lot of people donate like furniture, late in the entertainment industry. People like Jamie Foxx, Leonard DiCaprio's part of the Billy Ray, who I consider a mentor to me. I believe he's on the board where they give, and you probably never heard of them, but check out A Sense of Home. They do great work. Their office literally is in, I think, Hawthorne by SpaceX. So I need to donate more books to them. So they put some of the books in the homes, and the kids love it because, like Jake and Francisco were former, they're orphans, former foster kids. So these kids
That's really good.
reading
Yeah,
about the
that's really
kids that they
good.
can relate to,
Right.
And there's a
seeing
And
how
Leonard, you were foster youth yourself, right?
Yeah, I was at one time. Yep.
yeah.
And so I
United
think
Friends of the
we have a
Children's
lot
Home.
of folks that can relate to that.
Yeah. So the Citizen Home does a lot of great good. My friend Alpha Nyemo Jinko Foundation does a lot of great good in Nigeria. Where they do hip replacement, knee replacements, and they have a scholarship for the girls that was kidnapped by Boko Haram, the terrorist guy. So he's doing God's work. I know a lot of Citizen Home's doing God's work, helping others, and I pray that once I'm in a position to do that, I'm going to do the same with my foundation.
All right, we have about 2 minutes. Do you have any lasting questions, or obviously I want to have Leonard, kind of see us off in terms of inspiring us on what you can do when you have a sustained vision that we talked about.
Dr. Said, I just want to say thank you for always bringing such really great people into the space and helping us to really embrace all that is, all that's out there. So it really helps us to expand our horizons and share information, because this was an amazing meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Said, I want to say something real quick. My brother Andrew Thompson is in Australia. For some reason, his phone he had a problem, but I'm going to read what he was asking. He sent me a message on Facebook, said, I'm sorry, for some reason, my phone won't allow me to turn the microphone on. He's coming error. So his question is this: will any of the film be shot here in Australia? You are not only an inspiration to the Black kids in the U.S. and Africa, but your novels drive spirit and passion for Black kids all over the world. The Aboriginal kids here in Australia are some people who are unfortunately forgotten about, even by our own government. How do you intend to reach out to those kids? Thank you, Andrew, for that question. But I want to do that too. That's another reason why I created the story. That's the reason why I went to when I was in Australia. I watched a documentary. I could not move. That talked about like the Aboriginal folklore of, like, when you're looking into the sky, like you see themselves, like their ancestors looking back on you, a reflection of them. It may not make sense of what I'm saying, but it was really profound on me when I saw that. That's before I went to the Great Barrier Reef the next day, and I flew to Cairns. So yeah, Andrew, I am going to do that. Like when I mentioned where I want to help foster kids, I want to help our people who have great gifts in them, but they just not given a chance. So once this does start, every place I've been pretty much around the world, I want to help. I want to start off here. Australia, definitely, for sure, because the Aboriginal people, a lot of people feel that they're the original people on this earth. And Dr. Said, you saw like the picture with the Great Barrier Reef. We talked about, there's certain things and entities that was in the water around me.
Absolutely. I remember the sharks you were telling me about. Anyhow, remember, I've known Leo for over 30 years, so we go way back. And I think
way back.
Just make sure you think about putting me in your movie. Maybe I'll be an Uncle Zadok, because I got, call me the Silver Surfer now.
Fight against Samuel Jackson, but Dr. Said, when I knew him when we were high school kids, he was like young, cocky brother. totally opposite. I went to Oxnard. He went to Miami and playing football. Him and his brother, young, cocky. I never imagined in a million years to see this brother doing what he's doing. He's helping the next future leaders. And I went to an event last year, then seeing how everyone embraced you. I was like, wow, all love. You are all love, and you receive it back, and you're doing God's work. And I want to be in that position too when I am able to help others. And thank you for all you've done, and thank you for continuing to give me a platform. And you were the first who believed in the books in your class. And when I was reading some of the comments, one of the lectures we did, like Armenian kids, Asian kids, Latino kids, students love the book because everyone can relate to it. There's a
lot of contemporary issues like you're talking about with teen pregnancy and suicide and things that are real, to students' experiences right now. So I just want to thank you again, Leo, for such a great conversation. As always, we always do this. And I look forward to our next, thing. Obviously, we have the Black Youth Guidance Forum coming up on April 6th that I'd like to bring you there to speak to folks to inspire them. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. I just want to say real quickly, LeonardClifton.com. If you don't have the book, you can check out LeonardClifton.com. The book's on there, the merch, shoptlpa.com, or just come down to the Baldwin Hills store to my BB. Black Beauty Box. And I just thank you all for attending. I'm inspired more to continue to do the work I said I'm going to do. And when the movie happens, I forgot the young lady who was talking. Hey, you may work with me. You may work together because, like I said, I'm building a team.
Dom would be a great person to work with. She's a deep thinker. She's what do I call her? A thought leader. So I think two minds. What do you say? Iron sharpens iron. Let's keep it going.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. You guys have a very blessed rest of your evening. I hope you are inspired. I'm going to take this recording off.